I think in a world full of constant rejection, it can be mad easy for you to lose yourself. Now, oftentimes think the phrase of I'm trying to find myself or find yourself again is often just you trying to figure out the version of yourself that you need to be to get accepted by people. I feel like we often don't actually know who we are, but rather we figure out the character that we need to play in order to get people's approval, in order to get people's acceptance. And so in this video, I want to kind of go over like how I actually found my real self, like the version of Will that is actually Will and not just the person I figured out who to be for other people, essentially. And I'm gonna try and, first go on about how I did it non-biblically, and then I'm gonna kind of go towards how my relationship with God kind of affected it. But I think to find yourself in this world, you have to actually recognize you already are somebody. I think a lot of you have this idea that you have to be somewhere in order to finally be somebody. We think like, oh, I just want to be somebody. I just want to know who I am. I think you have to realize that there's already a version of yourself that you are. It just may not be who you want to be. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in things like comparison. And we get in this mindset of thinking that we constantly need to change. We constantly need to be improving. We're constantly falling behind when it's like, you gotta just find a way to accept and embrace where you are and just work from where you are. Everybody's circumstances, everybody's situation, everybody's story, everybody's journey is going to look different from yours. And I think we have to realize that, we can't be mad for not being somewhere that we just simply aren't at right now. And so I think you have to recognize you already are somebody, but you have to recognize like, who are you trying to become? I think a lot of us, we say we're trying to find ourselves when we have to realize that we get to choose who we be. We get to choose whether we're a loving person. We get to choose whether we're a forgiving person. We get to choose, the person that we show up as on a day-to-day basis. I feel like a lot of us are more so just lost in who is the person that actually makes me feel comfortable? Who is the version of myself that, I'm actually comfortable in my own skin? And I feel like a lot of us, we know who we are, or there's parts of ourselves that, it pops up in our minds who we are. And that's our authentic self, as in the way we respond to certain things, or our perspective on certain things, or the way in which we view the world and our creativity and stuff. I think it's like in our mind who we are, but we just never feel like we have the space to actually express it. Again, I feel like a lot of us, we are looking for the version of ourselves that we need to be in order to gain other people's acceptance, as if who we are meant to be will reflect in how the external world responds to us. I think a lot of us, we're looking for ourselves in how many followers we have, and we almost like place like these labels on ourselves based on our circumstances and how we look to other people's perspectives, or even who other people tell us that we are. We describe ourselves as, oh, I'm funny, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that, because of how other people reacted to it. And so I think it's important to like realize like, who we are isn't found in our results. Who we are isn't found in our rejection, isn't found in our circumstances, isn't found in other people's opinions of who they tell us that we are. Who we are is more so like, again, who we choose to be and who we know ourselves to be. I know I went through a phase of my life where I felt like I didn't know who I was, or I felt like I didn't know who I needed to be. And I feel like the switch I kind of developed was more so like, what version of myself makes me happy? What's the version of Will that allows me to fully be myself and is unfiltered and isn't so worried about how he's being perceived, how he's being received? And that's what allowed me to figure out like what choices that I want to make that actually aligned like with my authentic self. I'm not gonna say I got over it completely, but I started to get over that fear of rejection. I started to get over that fear of people not liking me, people not accepting me, because I feel like for a very long time in my life, I used to just, put out different versions of myself, trying to figure out like, again, who I needed to be accepted by the popular people or the group of kids that I thought, were my friends and stuff like that. But, as I grew, especially in just like college and in high school and stuff like that, and just kind of being in the world on my own, I started like seeing like the character I was playing was maybe getting me accepted externally, but I didn't actually like being that person internally. And so it was more so like, what's the life that I actually enjoy living? I've come on here and I've talked about music. I've talked about, games I play, just the lifestyle that I kind of live, and just more so just expressing my personality and stuff like that. And I feel like, again, although people may not initially have accepted that, I feel like in being yourself, you eventually find the people who are for you. I mentioned this in previous videos where I feel like we all have a purpose and a version of ourselves that I believe God has called us to be, that serves a purpose some way, shape, or form in this world. And I feel like so many of us, we get caught up in, again, trying to follow other people and almost like follow a trend of a personality style we need to have, or a type of person that we have to be, that we almost can like miss out on our purpose and our actual group of people that are meant to be in our lives. But again, I think like figuring out who you are as a person like also starts with change. I think a lot of us, we're so comfortable in how we've been living our lives, whether that's with the mindset we've carried, whether that's caring what other people think about us, whether that's chasing after love, whether that's needing other people's approval and other people's acceptance. It all comes down to change, and who you are really becomes a default mode in how you choose to show up. And so you are somebody right now, and it's more so learning to figure out, where am I right now, but where do I actually want to be, and what are the steps I need to start taking in order to become that person? Because many of us, we get caught up in, again, the limitations the world tries to place on us, or thinking that these external factors of, the amount of Instagram followers I have, the amount of friends I have, these are the things that determine the labels I get to place on myself, as whether I'm somebody I can believe in, whether somebody I'm confident in, whether I'm somebody where I trust myself, whether I'm somebody who's cool, whether I'm somebody who's popular. Like, we look to the external world to determine these values that we hold within ourselves and these labels that we place on ourselves. And I often think we kind of just get so attached to that mindset that we carry, to the point that we never actually like change the way we think, or change our perspective, or change what we allow to determine the opinion that we hold of ourselves. And I feel like that's also an issue. Like, we get so attached to being comfortable with the person that we are right now, to the point that we never actually make anything different about ourselves to change who we are. We say we're constantly like trying to find ourselves, but then we never do anything to kind of find ourselves or do anything differently, because we're so caught up in this routine and this lifestyle that we've always been in, that we don't, again, try and step outside of the box. And I think we also we tend to want everything to change at once. I think it's so easy to be like, I see these issues wrong with me, or these areas within myself that need change, and we kind of step outside of that box for maybe a week, and then we don't see any type of result, or we don't feel any different, and we automatically assume, I guess this can't change, or I guess this is just who I am, or I guess I'll never find out who I am and my purpose and the person that I enjoy being. But it's like, finding yourself is something that takes so much consistency. It's something where it's like, you got to continuously again, choose to be who you want to be, changing your mindset, changing the way you think, changing certain insecurities, becoming more secure within your own self. Like, these things are something that are daily practices for years. Like, there's still times where I get urges. There's still times where I feel some type of way. And I find myself almost falling into letting my results or letting things outside of myself define me. And it's like, I gotta literally reel myself back into my truth, into my reality and my understanding of myself. But it's like, if you give up on that so easily, you will allow yourself to remain in a place where other people determine how you view yourself, or your circumstances determine your opinion of yourself, or where your results and stuff like that have a big influence on how you feel about you. I get it, because it's so many people you can choose to be in this world. There's so many, especially with Instagram now, there's so much comparison. There's so many different lifestyles that people are showing you. There's so many different personalities. There's so many people who are in places that we wish to be in. There's also just so many opinions online, and people just voicing things and constantly being in this state of judgment. And it's you can get so easily get so confused on a version or who you feel comfortable being, because again, it's so much constant judgment. It's so easy to get caught up in comparison, thinking because this worked for them, then I must need to do this or replicate this, rather than finding your own way to essentially do it. Again, your life and your journey is going to look different from other people's, but that doesn't mean you can't reach the same destination or achieve the same things, just in your way. And I feel again, in the day and age of social media and stuff like that, it's so easy to kind of just get caught up in indecisiveness almost of which direction to go with your personality, because there's so many people telling you what you can and can't do. You're hearing other people's results and seeing other people's results, and it's make you think, okay, maybe I could do this, maybe I can't do this, or they failed at this and I see them as better than me, so I definitely can't step into that. So, like, it's so easy to like get influenced and again place these labels, place these limitations on who you are, rather than just again like choosing who you want to be, going in the direction and figuring out what version of yourself brings you the most peace, what version of yourself brings you the most happiness, and learning to embrace that version of yourself regardless of what other people think about it. I feel like the more you learn to embrace who you are, you almost like attract the people who were meant for you. Again, in my videos, I try and keep my authenticity. I try and keep me just being true to myself. And so in that, you hear my slang, you might hear the way I speak, and kind of just like, I don't know, maybe even my energy, my nonchalantness. And some people, they might get bored of it. Some people, they might, it may not be attracted to them, or it may not be something that they care for, something that they may not like. But on the flip side of that, there's also the people who my videos give them a sense of realness. My videos give them a sense of, not being alone, essentially, or, somebody who truly relates to them in the way that they think and the way that they see the world. And so I'm not here to say I'm the greatest motivational speaker, I'm the greatest self-improvement person on the YouTube or whatever, but I am here to say, like, there's an audience that resonates with me, and an audience where me being who I really am, it resonates with them. And so I would much rather be who I actually am and help the people who my authentic self is able to help, rather than trying to, again, be a character, go in a different direction and do all this extraordinary stuff. Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube. Like, that's just not me. And so it's like, yeah, I could care about the things outside of myself and the numbers and all this stuff, but it's like, I don't want to lose myself in the process of trying to, again, accomplish or achieve things that I can achieve if I just stay true to me as well. That I fully believe I can achieve being true to me as well. And like I was saying earlier, when it comes to kind of just my relationship with God and, the relationship I've been building over like the past year, I feel like the more I've read like the Bible, and as you commit your life to God, you kind of commit to becoming a reflection of God. You want to be a representation of God, as in your actions and your decision and your heart and your mind. You're trying to align that more with a God-like mind, heart, and all that stuff, lifestyle, basically. Like, it's not just a temporary decision of, oh, I'm a man of God, but it's more so a lifestyle, something that you live out. And so in reading the Bible, in getting closer to God, certain things become so much more clear on how you react to them, how you handle them. Because I feel like a lot of us, we are so indecisive with how we should handle certain situations, because we're scared of how people are going to react to it, or we're scared of, again, the result it's going to get us, whether it gets us rejected, whether it gets us accepted. I feel like in reading the Bible, I learned to detach who I was from, again, these external things that in the end don't really matter. And so in reading the Bible, in growing closer to God, like when it comes to my love, when it comes to my forgiveness, I know who I am in those aspects, so that decisions become a lot more clearer for me, and it becomes a lot easier to let go and not cling on to certain things, because again, I know who I am in Christ. I know I'm always loved. I know there's nothing externally outside of who I am that determines whether I'm good enough, because God determined I was good enough when he decided to place me on this earth. And so it's things like that that completely change your mindset. Again, if you're a person of Christ, where it just changed the whole way in which you like even see yourself. Again, it changes the grace you give to yourself. It changes the mercy you give to others. It changes the resentment you hold within your heart. It changes the love that you give out to others. And so it's like, I know who I am a lot because of who I built myself into through Christ and stuff like that, and who he's called me to be. And so I just kind of wanted to give that rundown for those of y'all who, like my biblical perspective, or just like my faith, and how that has helped me or factored into my self-improvement and my relationship with myself. But yeah, finding who you are in this world is really a decision that you get to make for yourself. And I think it's important to be self-aware and more self-conscious of embracing the now and making decisions that more so align with who your heart calls you to be. Who do you choose to be, and what steps need to be taken in order for you to live out a life that actually reflects you being that person, and continue to walk those steps until they're your default steps, because it is going to be so easy to want to go back to your old self and your old habits, your old routine. But when you make an intentional decision each and every day, an intentional choice each and every day to be a reflection of a different version of yourself, then that at some point will just be who you are on autopilot. But I love you guys as always. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, as well as check out my one-on-one coaching down below in the description. I'm gonna catch you guys in the next video. Peace.